Fruit Force, this is Captain Fruit reporting for duty, and today I want to talk about The Last of Us Part 2. Now, I just want to be up front and clear. I have not played this game for myself, but based on what I'm hearing and seeing, I could see some major disconnects here. First of all, you look at the scores, the Metacritic score of 95, that's out of 100, and 3.4 for viewers, and that's out of 10. Overall, it looks like there's a very big discrepancy between gamers, and the initial critics that were given releases. Now, let me talk about that why. And first of all, if you're getting game codes and games for free from a company, how likely are you to sit there and bite the hand that feeds you and give a bad review? Now, there is some people that do, but let's be honest here. A lot of reviewers and things like that will not. Really, they're nothing more than a shill, another extension of media to promote a game. We see that with games. We've seen that with comic books for ages. Comic books that regular people would read and just didn't care for, and yet they'd get glowing reviews. And that's because they have these shill media have something to gain. They know that gets them clicks. They know that those games and having reviews and things for those games and articles about them is going to get them clicks, and that's how they're going to earn their revenue, as well as get the free stuff. So they want to bite the hand that feeds them. Now, we look at the user score. What does a user have to really gain here? Nothing. So bear that in mind. They don't, with one exception is the maybe like a hate mob or an angry mob, which, don't get me wrong, is possible. I'm trying to be objective here. There is some possibility, but otherwise than that, there's not. Now, also on top of that, people are more likely to report a negative than ever than a positive, so you have to consider that as well. So both sides could have some potential bias. Now, I've also read people on Twitter and things saying, well, look at the Sony store numbers. That'll tell you. No, that doesn't tell you anything, because anytime a company hosts what its reviews are, they can selectively manipulate things a little bit. Matter of fact, speaking of manipulation, the score actually, they removed users on this from the general public reviews, and the score went down. So we have that to consider. And after this, a lot of the shill media reviewers have been attacking the user score, saying it was because of hate mobs and things, which is, have we ever heard that before? It's not uncommon. This has happened a lot of times, that the user score, in my opinion, is the better reflection. You have to understand, maybe there's going to be some leeway for a certain amount, but when you have so many people doing it, come on now. There has to be some legitimacy to a point on that. And ultimately, here's where you probably can find the better idea of why that's happening, is when we look at the user reviews and actually read them and understand what they're saying. We could tell then if it was just a hate or somebody that actually played the game. See, this one gave it a 10 from a user review. It contains spoilers, stunning game, excellent storytelling that builds up upon unforgiving apocalypse, top-notch gameplay for its genre, another masterpiece by Naughty Dog. Now, I will tell you that what also withholds anybody working for the company or for the company to do this too. See, each one is potential manipulated. So let's go to a middle level, a 5. This review contains spoilers. Okay, so be wary. Here's a long one. So it says, after running through the game, here's my honest review of it. Positive, the game is gorgeous. And I will say, after reading a lot of these reviews, that's a common theme. The game looks spectacular. The graphics are seamless and impressive. The lighting and effect is something I've rarely seen in PS4 games. The soundtrack is amazing. These are all things that have been shown up in the reviews systematically, continuously. So that's probably a truism there. How fluid it is from shifting to a tense situation from a calm situation is perfect. The voice acting in this game is incredible as the first. So once again, I've heard a lot of that too, read a lot of that. So those things are probably pretty believable. The actors are spot on with their deliveries and emotion as they are conveyed. Difficulty, it played on normal, and even then it posted a challenge, which that's also a common theme that I've been hearing, is the difficulty is pretty good. The game was not easy to breeze through, but it definitely has a challenge they put there as they ran through. Gameplay, crafting, gunplay, mechanics, stealth, fighting felt fluid and saw very little stickiness. By the way, the gameplay mechanics I heard have actually improved as well on this game. That's a common thing we've been hearing, especially with the shooting mechanic. Some of the enemies are nightmare fuel, and it's worth learning their backstories and how they were created. So once again, this is a 5 out of 10, people. Here's the bad, and this is what's very common. This is the common thing we've been seeing in these reviews right here. Bad. The story is the game is horrendously put together. The plot holes, the character development, and how the game forces you to accept certain development, and how they present these developments are horrible and not well put together. That is the biggest common thing I keep seeing, and I think that's a reason why we're seeing these negative reviews, because they're in the just so you know, this is spoiler territory. Okay, you might want to not watch if this is a spoiler for you, but people didn't like it that they killed off one of the protagonists from the first game, and let alone on that, how the game went from after that. They didn't really care, and they hated even more is how it ended. People tend to like a good ending, a happy ending, a solid ending. This game did not provide that. It did not provide happy ending. Granted, sometimes you want to have it leave an opening for another game, another sequel, but when people don't have closure, it tends to make an uneasy feeling. And gamers tend to like to have closure. You just spent hours and hours on a video game. They tend to want to feel an accomplishment, a closure, a conclusion of some sort. And in this game, it did not deliver that. Henceforth, why I think a lot of the negative reviews. Once again, it's not the gameplay. It's not all these people hating on the sexuality and things like the Shills like to try to say it is. It's not true. It's they didn't like the story. They don't like how their character that they enjoyed and spent time with was killed, and how the story moved on after that and how it was handled. The story is set through a sequence of events early on in the game for character development. It failed badly. In fact, turned the game into a chore, and it became emotionally draining to complete it. That's not why you want to play a game for emotionally draining. The choices certain characters make or what made them likable and relatable are entirely 180 from the first game. This story was not put together well, and it was disappointing to witness. The AI in the game fell short of intelligent. I'm running past clickers. It's very easy to do, possibly due to my difficulty setting. Human enemies are the worst. They're very predictable, which made them boring to encounter. I want more monster type enemies, but there were more human battles than monster battles when compared to the first. This game definitely is not a successor to the first. I am saddened by the direction they chose for the story. I weigh single-player games heavily on the story. Because of how lacking the story was, the score I gave it is completely fair. Now, how do you tell that person it was just because they're a hater? Clearly not. Let's look at this one now, okay? They gave it a 1. The story is simply terrible. Naughty Dog ruined an amazing game. I don't want to give up any spoilers, but it seems like the script was written by a teenager. Once again, that sounds like somebody that actually likes the series, wanted a good game. Let's check the next one. Game for libtards and soy boys. Okay, this one probably could have been a hate-filled one there. Here's a 0. Poorly written story. Weak character arc. Disrespectful to the predecessor. Completely pushes agendas in your face just to please a minority that doesn't give a crap about video games. Truly disappointed by this route. So notice there, it keeps being a continuous trend here. We keep saying is the story and the characterization, and people care about those characters when they spent so much time. That's what the first game was so amazing with. Besides the gameplay was great, the graphics were great, but people really felt a connection to the characters because of the way the story was and how well it is. They set the bar really high from themselves, and it looks like they failed to deliver. Here's another long one too, but I'm gonna go to another one here. Let's see. Here we are. Let's skip some of these zeros. Some of the zeros might be the absolute hate here, okay? Well, let's go with this one, though. They destroy everything I love. Why are you doing this? If I buy Last of Us, I want to play The Last of Us, not Netflix crap. Interesting. Okay, let's go to... Oh, here's a 4. Let's go read that 4. Okay, let's see what they have to say. Story, 2 out of 10. Gameplay, 6 out of 10. Graphics, 10 out of 10. Whoever thinks a story should be honest about how they actually feel instead of white knighting Naughty Dog. Now, that's a good point here. Look, gameplay 6 out of 10, they didn't give great, but they gave a 10 out of 10 for graphics. Let's see how this person tends to look at other games, because we should explore it. Look at this. They gave Final Fantasy Remake a 9, a 10 for Death Stranding, and that's one that got beaten up a little bit. So I think that shows something there. They aren't just a hater necessarily of everything and going to be negative. Here's another one. Let's read this 3 here, some of this. It breaks my heart to write this, but I really did not expect such a poor story after all these years of waiting. While there were a few genuinely good moments, majority of the game filled up with plot holes. It just took elements of what worked from the first game without understanding what made them compelling. It seems like this game was done by other studios, but it's not. The basic gameplay stayed the same, for better or for worse. Environmental puzzles are almost gone, so remove story from the table, and you're left with a shallow gameplay that'll leave you looking for some other game. Now, that sounds like a pretty solid thought there. How about this one? I was so hyped for this game. 20 and something hours later, I finished the game, and all I can say is this is one of the most disappointing games I've played this year. And here's why. Here's the pros. The visuals look great. The sound is top notch. Voice acting is really good. Notice this is a consistent trend. We've been hearing about these things. And even people that gave this game a low score are saying that these elements were really good. Okay? Voice acting is really good. The world building and map design is really up there. Cons. The sheer amount of plot holes is just laughable. The story writing is trash. Forgettable characters. The way they handled some characters is just ridiculous. The AI is stupid. The ending was a piece of hot garbage. An antagonist is basically useless and gets away with too much. See, once again, no closure. The characterization. The story. So I think there is a lot of legitimacy here. But meanwhile, all the game journalists that are paid shills will tell you is, oh, they're all haters. Well, I think before we start judging that and saying it's a hate mob, next time maybe you ought to read some of these, because it looks like they are giving a lot of compliments here about how the game's graphics are, how well the cinematics were, how the characters look, that the gameplay itself was probably a bit improved. A lot of positives here, but the main thing is people didn't like a crap ending. People didn't like their characters treated so poorly. They didn't feel invested. After they spent all this time in Last of Us Part 1 investing in these characters, the way everything switched and changed in Part 2 definitely turned them off. And Naughty Dog better learn a lesson from this, because this is going to take a lot to come back from. How can you come back from this? Well, learn. You don't treat your characters poorly. Yes, characters can go through bad story arcs and bad things can happen to them, absolutely. But gamers, if they made a connection this strong to your character, you better make good decisions with that character and not just throw a character away without little thought just to push an agenda or to try to be shocking, which, let's be honest, that's what this game did. They aren't fooling anybody. They hired certain people to be in there. That way they could make sure they push an agenda, because the agenda is a hot topic and it's trendy. So they knew it was going to garner attention. But unfortunately for them, it garnered more negative attention than what they thought. The positive, you look at there, 6,796, mixed 636, and negative 16,000. That's ratioed, almost 17,000. Ratioed pretty bad in the negative, which means don't run out and buy this game right away. You might as well wait. It's probably going to be on the used market for pretty cheap and a pretty fast clicker. But that's my thoughts, not yours. What do you think about these numbers? Do you think it's just shill media pumping it up and giving it a high score? Or do you think it's just a hate mob? But I recommend, before you do, actually reading some of these for yourself. And yeah, you can usually tell a lot of the zeros maybe and things like that are maybe a little over hating. Okay, but maybe not. For example, I want to hit this zero here. Killing one of the most beloved gaming characters for pure shock value. Amazing, isn't that what I just said? Then going into a quest of revenge, killing tons of people along the way just to suddenly decide it's bad to kill and let the murderer go. It's completely idiotic, and that's very true. So you kill a bunch of people that had nothing to do with it on your way to get revenge, but then you don't kill the person that you were trying to get revenge against. Something to think about of how this story had plot holes and not making sense. Makes a whole lot of sense to me. But once again, I want to know your feelings. So, all right, thanks for watching this video. Until next time, everybody, keep it frugal.